Hi everybody, and welcome back to the game. Today we're going to be talking about self and other, as in other than self. This video will be kind of an introduction into how duality is possible, into what makes that possible. But before we get into it, as usual, let me introduce you once again to my artificial intelligence sponsor. I'll be right back.
Hello, and welcome to the Matrix Game of Life. It is the generosity of viewers like you that makes this channel possible. If you find the information provided as being beneficial, please send a thank you gift. It will be much appreciated. A PayPal link can be found in the description section of all videos. May your Matrix experience be one of health and of prosperity.
All right, welcome back, as I said. It's 2:01 a.m., 11/17/2021. I was sitting watching a movie on television, some sci-fi thing, and got up out of my chair to make this video. Now, I'm totally going to wing it. I haven't made any notes. I am going to work off a diagram, which I will have on the screen for you. I want to work off the diagram myself. I'm hoping to reestablish the thought flow that I was experiencing when I drew the graphic, when I was constructing it. Because at that time I knew exactly what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. Now, I haven't even thought about this video other than the name. And I understand what we're going to talk about. I just don't have a lesson plan. So we'll wing it, okay? And like I said, the name of the video is Self and Other. Another term for the word self is I. The name self gives to itself. I. Same word in all languages. Might not sound the same, but it means the same. I. And other than self. Meaning experiencing a self. Oftentimes, and unfortunately, it's the experience of a separate self. The separate self. Other words for that are ego, persona, and naturally identifying with the body. Now, there's nothing wrong with any of that, with separate self. It's, in the grand scheme of things, it's a natural occurrence. At least it is, especially when we're talking about body, in this, what we call, for purposes of measurement, what we call a third dimensional experience. The secondary matrix. in the matrix game of life. The secondary matrix being within the primary matrix, the universe. This game has a matrix all to itself, so as not to contaminate what's outside the box, so to speak, where this game is played. Now, those are all figures of speech. They're necessary. They're necessary in order to have a discussion, in order to learn, and in order to teach. But the I that we're going to talk about, the self that we are going to talk about, that I, is not the separate self. It is the I of every source fractal. The I word is a concept. It's what the mind names itself. And remember, I said that we are all what term did I use? Oh, we are all precipitated in source, made of source, informed by source, and our source. A fractal is precipitated in source. Giving as mind. We are precipitated as mind. You could say source's mind. That's a little bit inaccurate, but it'll do for now. We are all fractals of the mind of source. We call ourselves I. Every fractal has the same name. The mind of source gives itself the same name, I. I am. I am. That is the identifier of the mind of source, figuratively speaking. So it's this I am, the mind of source, fractalized into each source fractal with the same identity and the same name. There is a reason for that. This source fractal, I'll speak of myself and I'll apply it to you. What I'm saying about this fractal that you believe you're looking at on the screens and hearing speak. This source fractal, being a fractal of the I am mind, so to speak, the mind fractalized. Being fractalized is by nature going to experience a sense of limitation. That sense of limitation is that hole that we feel in us sometimes. When we're feeling incomplete, out of place. That hole that we try to fill with many things, like drugs, alcohol, relationships, trying to achieve states of mind, like through meditation or something. We try to fill that hole with things, the acquisition of things. A brand new Volkswagen Beetle or a brand new Ferrari. We try to fill that hole with status. We try to fill that hole with what we call love. If you can think of it, we've tried to fill that hole of that sense of separation, that limitedness that we are experiencing. The ways that we've tried to fill that hole, which is the cause of suffering, that sense of limitation is suffering. It's the experience of suffering. Feeling disconnected. Feeling like we don't belong. Searching, seeking for years on end. Trying to fill that hole that we feel, that incompleteness. We've all experienced that for a long time, if you want to talk about linear time. Linear time is something that, at least in this dimension, this third dimension, like I said, is just a figurative measurement term. In this third dimension, time is profound. Enough said about that. We are a fractalization of the I am, which the I am is, like, figuratively speaking, the mind of source of consciousness. This is all consciousness. I want to speak about that in just a second. So we feel the source of limitation because we are fractalized. For the most part, if we're honest with our experience, we don't like it. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's okay. You know, we have snatches of happiness, like getting a raise at work and knowing that you're going to have more money in the bank. The game of finances, a game within this game. So many games here that they all make the matrix game of life. But anyhow, I won't get into that. We have a newborn daughter or a newborn son, and we're overjoyed with because that is an expression, a new, brand new manifest expression of our shared being. Our shared being. That's what love is. It's experiencing our shared being equal as one. Sometimes we feel that with our intimate partners, especially during sex. That's why we like sex so much. We are getting in touch with another fractal, another I that we perceive as being separate from this I. We come together and merge, and the two become one. It's the experience of our shared being. And if it isn't just raw sex, a lot of time there's love involved in that. That's what do we say? Let's make love. But we're always trying to fill this void, this hole. And nothing that we try to fill it with works. Because it doesn't work is exactly why we're here right now, talking about these things. That doesn't work. Stuff and things don't work. That's why the gurus and the sages and the mystics and your yoga teacher or your meditation teacher want you to go inside to find what you're looking for. Because it isn't out there. It's not in the world. We have a sense of, if we could just get somewhere, in some fashion, if we could just move, be different somehow. And all of that, everything that I've said, in a sense, is an illusion. But don't worry about it. Let's say sometimes we're deceived, bewildered, and we don't know we're being deceived. We don't know that we're subject to an illusion. Our experience goes on. We are the experiencers. And what we experience, just because at core level we are source, does not mean that our experience should always be nice, because it isn't. Sometimes it is. It's like source. And we'll take it down a level to the I am, the mind, call it universal mind. This mind, it works the same as our fractalized experience of mind. When we go to sleep, here in what we perceive as the earth. When we go into it at the end of whenever we do it, when we go to sleep, our minds fall asleep to itself. It falls asleep to itself and enters into its own imagination. And it dreams a world out there. It dreams, and these are experiences in the dream. It dreams a world out there, matter, on the outside, and it dreams within thoughts, feelings, emotions, and 99.99% of the time there's a body involved. Sometimes it's not your own. Sometimes you dream that you're a different character. But that's the separate subject of experience. Your own mind, falling asleep to itself, is dreaming a world out there. It's dreaming thoughts and feelings and emotions in here. It's all a dream. And the things that happen in a dream are, you can't predict them. Unless you're lucid dreaming, that's another story. You can't predict what happens in a dream. Anything can happen. Anything. And it does. And when all of that experience is going on in your own mind that is sleeping and dreaming, you haven't got a clue that what you're dreaming is not reality, real. You don't know that. And anything can happen. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Anything can happen. Anything. If the mind can imagine it effortlessly, it'll appear. It'll be perceived by the mind that's dreaming the separate subject of perception. That dreamed character perceives also. It's a shared thing. It's pretty marvelous. But then you wake up. The dream ends, you wake up, and you know that it was a real dream, and you know that everything that happened in it, we say to ourselves, well, I dreamed this and I dreamed that, knowing that it's not here. In the waking, what we call the waking state, the waking state cannot experience. When you are in the waking state, your mind cannot experience the dream state. In order to experience the dream state, your mind has to fall asleep to itself. We call it sleep. And it dreams a world within itself. It's all a dream. When in this game, and I'll try to keep this simple, in this game, when we awaken to the dream of what we call the waking state, well, that point of awakening from the waking state, I'm not even going to try to explain that. It has to be an experience, I'll just say a source, fractal, personal I experience. That's what most people are really either searching for or complaining about. Because even, like, think of it, in the waking state, it may not be as fantastical as flying around your neighborhood from the rooftops into the trees and way up into the clouds and landing where you want and taking off. It, like, our sleeping mind conjures up, so to speak, imagines. This waking state, what we experience, is not that fantastical. It can get pretty hairy. Look at, what was the guy's name in the Matrix game movie? In the movie The Matrix? Nemo or something, I forget. I know Mr. Reeves, I know the actor, but I forget what his character was. It just doesn't come to mind at the moment. Some fantastical things can happen in this waking state. I mean, I've been in all kinds of situations. Life-threatening, so to speak. Blissful, happy, really weird. I mean, you never know what's going to happen next, really. It's another form of the dream. It's the dream of what we call, it's the dream of the waking state. This is a dream. You are experiencing a dream. Who's the experiencer of this dream? The fractal. That is the I, your fractal, so to speak. That is the I. The fractalized, a fractal of mind, which is now sleeping to itself. And it has entered into its own imagination and is dreaming this waking state. I hope I made that fairly simple to understand. The ego, the separate self, the ego, the false I, the I that most people think that they are and are not, but they don't know it. Because they're lost in their own waking state dream. They don't know they're in a dream. They don't know, yet they're aware of the suffering, the sense of separateness. It's why people go to church, pray to God, find a Savior, find religion. Sometimes have spiritual experiences that sometimes could be tapping into your real I, and sometimes it doesn't mean anything. Now listen to me carefully right now. I think I've spoken enough about this. 30 minutes on this. I think that's enough. All of this activity, call it, is the activity of consciousness. Well, what I referred to, which is, it's just a phrase to represent what I'm talking about, that cosmic mind, the I am, let's say, the I am of consciousness, the cosmic mind, is the activity of consciousness, which is immeasurable, unbounded, infinite. The cosmic mind, so to speak, is itself, the I am, is itself a limitation of consciousness. Now here's what I want you to understand. Consciousness, what we call source, but consciousness, awareness, it does not do anything. It doesn't think, oh, I think I'll do this, or I think I'll become an I am, or I'll... No. Consciousness has an activity. It's like your stomach and your lower intestine, they help to digest your food. Digestion is the activity of the stomach. You cannot ask your stomach to do something. You can't tell it to go to the store for you. It's just there to digest food. It doesn't think about it. It doesn't plan it. It's the natural state of the stomach. The activity of the stomach is to digest food. The activity of source which is aware of itself, not of things. It's aware of its isness. It doesn't think I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. No. it has an activity. It's called perception. Consciousness. And I'm speaking figuratively, but I want to explain this. The activity of consciousness, just like the stomach causes your food to be turned from a solid, well, whatever the stomach does, consciousness at a very, very, very subtle but profound way, it would be impossible for me to explain how this works, other than contrasting it and using the stomach as an analogy. The I, a self appears. And with that self appearing, and that self's name is I am. Aren't you? And as soon as you could almost call it the Lord, the Oversoul, put whatever term on it that you want, but an I arises out of consciousness. It is the activity of consciousness. It is not a willful choice of consciousness to do that. It is just, that's the activity of consciousness. It vibrates within itself, so to speak, and however that happens, it's what happens. You can't get in there and measure it or see it or put it under a microscope or a particle accelerator. We try to do all that stuff, looking for the God particle, so to speak, the unity substance behind all matter, and they're never going to find that because matter does not exist except as a thought form. But anyhow, consciousness does not do willfully anything, but it's responsible for the rising of the I, which automatically brings with it, which is a thought, actually. It's the name of cosmic mind, which is part of it's the activity of source. Like, that's just a name. It's a word, cosmic mind, that is named itself I, which already, at a very high yet subtle level, put a limit. It's already limited. Because along with the I thought, which that's what the word I is, it's the I thought. The activity of mind is thought. As soon, there's a pop-up. As soon as there's the presence of that I thought, it's going to naturally bring up the concept of I am, and then the next thought will be, well, what am I compared to what? And the concept of self and other than self arises. And boom. Duality has made the scene. And the game is on. The game is on. Now, I'm telling this in a, I couldn't, there's no way to speak about this other than in a very crude type of manner. It's the best I can speak of it. The game is on at that point. So actually, who's experiencing that game? Who's responsible for that game? Consciousness. There is therefore now no condemnation. I said a long time ago, get sin consciousness and karma concepts, get that out of your belief systems. It's not helpful. But the game is on at that point. Now, this is not anything that consciousness does willfully. It's not a choice. It's not, it just, that's what is. What is what is. It is manifestation. It is the very first, I'm talking about the rising of the I am, cosmic mind call it, is the very most refined, highest level, so to speak, of manifestation. A thing. And remember my experience I told you about, that I experienced like a division of the realm of nothing and the realm of things. Now, these two, they're not separate. It's not as though they're separate, like there's one realm here and the realm of things over here. That's just figurative speech. They're actually the same thing. But consciousness is behind it all. The immeasurable, unnameable. From that, so to speak, I thought, comes, it provokes automatically the thought. We're in the realm of thought here. Because it's the first thing, the first manifestation, so to speak, is mind. That is limited. Source is unlimited. But it's far. We can't even, I mean, I can imagine it, but we're way, way, way more limited in this experience but its experience feels pretty unlimited. It's called, the word that we have for that is the I am. Moses walked over to the burning bush. He heard it talking. The burning bush told him to go see the Pharaoh, and Moses said, well, who should I say sent me? And the answer was, I am that I am. In other words, it's the highest manifestation of consciousness, so to speak. People have a lot of words for that. The Greeks called it Christos. This is all in this diagram that I put up in our last video. And like I said, there's a link to it. Go find it and look at it. The Greeks called this Christos, this I am. It's actually nameless. You can call it, a lot of people call it God. But they're certainly not thinking of it in the way that we're discussing it now. Well, most people aren't. Okay. But understand this. This is nothing that consciousness does. It just happens. It's like an apple tree does not grunt and groan to produce apples. An apple tree apples. The sun, for example, it doesn't grunt and groan to shine. That's what it is. It's heat and light. It's what it is. It's not doing anything. It's what it is. And the consciousness does not grunt and groan. To appear in perception. All perception begins with a thought. I'll use a little religious example. It's one I wish I didn't have to use, but I'll use it. It's like right in the beginning of the Bible, in the book of Exodus, or Genesis. Very first paragraphs. It said that God spoke and God saw. All right, fine. But before a word can be spoken, it is first a thought. A spoken word, at least in our experience, is only a symbol of the thought that precedes it. Now, it happens so fast that they seem to be happening at the same time, thinking and speaking at the same time. Yeah, but the thought is always first. Anything that we perceive, now, and I'll limit it to this experience of a third-dimensional matrix. The matrix is the mind. Anything that we experience in this third dimension, or what we perceive to be reality, which it isn't, go back to the beginning of this video and what I said. We're dreaming this. In the dream, everything begins with a thought, an idea. You cannot take a thought, pull a thought out of the mind. Nor can you pluck the mind out of consciousness. Everything is the same thing. It's all connected. It's all consciousness, source, that manifested as I am, not on purpose. Remember, the apple tree didn't grunt to produce apples. Apples just happen. The universe peoples. It's just the natural flow and manifestation of things. But in our world here, everything that we see as a thing began as a thought. And then an idea, a little train of thoughts. And an idea focused upon is given power. And if the intention is behind that power, and that thought is focused on enough, the idea forms. If the idea is focused on enough, a plan comes, and if there's a plan, the best laid plans of mice and men, nevertheless, if there's a plan, sometimes it will manifest. We think it into existence. In the very same way that when you're sleeping, your mind thinks a world out there and a world in here, it thinks that into existence. And neither our world, this is no more real than the things in the dream that you dream when your mind goes to sleep to itself and dreams a world. This world, the same thing is happening, except it is what some people call a soul. It is the fractal, which we are, a fractalized form of the cosmic mind, limited, but endowed with perception, the experience of what we're calling mind. The activity of the mind is thought. The mind does not grunt for a thought to show up. It happens naturally. Just like an apple tree there's no effort behind the activity of the apple tree is to apple. The activity of the mind is thought. There really isn't a thinker making thoughts up. There is a perceiver of the thought. That is the I, the fractal, the limitation. Itself is asleep. Remember I said in other videos that you are not here, but you are sleeping, and I used the term on another planet, which in the grand scheme of things is true. But that's part of the dream that you're having in Source because you never left Source. You never left there. You are consciousness. You are aware of being. You know the experience of singularity, individualism, as an I, as a fractal of Source. So it's as though that we are the windows through which unlimited, unbounded consciousness experiences, so to speak, its infinite potential by falling asleep to itself and dreaming, imagining a thing called mind, so to speak. That itself is part of the dream of Source. Just as we are. This never began, this whole process. It never began and it will never end. There's no such thing as beginnings and ends except in the dream. To wake up in the dream is to realize. It's called realization, is to realize that you're dreaming, that you're in your own dream. And when I say when you're in your own dream, Source is waking up to itself, one fractal at a time. It wakes up to itself and goes, oh, I'm dreaming. Does the dream end? No. Why? It's because it's not anything that consciousness is consciously doing. The only thing that really wakes up is that I am. Know the I, the self. Not the other than self, the things. Know thyself. I can explain that. But this awakening has to be experienced. Waking up to the waking state. This is a dream. It's really involved, yes. You imagine it? I use the term the unfathomable mind of Source, the imagination. It's unlimited potential. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Life is but a dream. That's true. That is not life denying, it is life affirming. I am. I am aware. I experience whatever comes. And being awake in the dream, I'm aware of the thoughts, which are the activity of mind, and I can pick and choose which ones I care to play with, and I can create simply by thinking it with intention. It will manifest, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, sometimes immediately. It's winning the game. It's mastering the very first emanation, so to speak, a source, which is I. I am. This never began. It's because there's no time. Time is a concept in the dream. Does that erase you? No. It will, correctly experienced, it'll get rid of the separate self, because nothing is separate. This is all one. It's not two. It is written, God is all and all. What part of all are you not? Consciousness, then, is the only existence. It is existence itself. And existence has an activity. And this never began. And it never ends. It's eternal. It's timeless. It's but we are the experiences. We are the fractals of the I, so to speak. The I, the cosmic mind fractalized into many small eyes. It's all mind. This is all thought. You're not a little plasma bubble sitting inside of consciousness. You kind of, it's not like that. I kind of remember this, but I can't really say it. I'm doing the best I can with it. And I see I'm at an hour and 2 minutes, so here I am back at my hour point. But this here talks about that. It talks about, with the I and the concept of self and other than self. That's the origin of the concept of good and evil. And from that point on, it's like the game is on, brother. We're in it. And to understand it, it can't beat you down. Because in an analysis, you created it. And we get lost in our own dream. We don't know that we are sleeping and dreaming. We don't know that until we wake up in the dream, which is waking up, awakening in the waking state. This state, waking up in that. But in the end, it's your fractal. The mind, the fractalized mind we experience, which is just a part of the cosmic mind, so to speak, which is consciousness. Who wakes up? Source. One fractalized mind at a time. That's the source self-connection thing. There's a lot I could say about that. I don't want to make my video too long here. So anyhow, yeah, this graphic, this diagram, it talks about things that we haven't even begun to talk about yet. Although on the left-hand side of it, where it says Christos, which is a Greek for sun, that's the I, that's the mind, that's upper wisdom. Thought, thinking. It's non-dual. It thinks, a thought arises of itself. I am. And then the thought arises of other than self. What's other than I? That's how duality works. We've been playing in duality for who knows how long, and we never left source. Never. It's all one thing. And I am that, and so are you. Okay, enough said. Like I said, I made this video. I was watching a movie and I just got up out of the chair and started making a video. I don't know why. I don't care. But I hope it helps. We'll get into it a little bit more. I mean, I gave you a pretty general overall picture of things, and we can look at we can dig in there a little bit deeper also. Because our goal right now, it's always now, but right now, our goal is to beat this game instead of having pain and suffering and being afraid of death. There's no such thing as that. Because we are not what we think we are. Death is just a concept. It's part of the dream. It's part of the game. That's the idea of this game. To get out of the suffering, to get out of the pain, to get out of the delusion and the illusion, to quit being deceived. To find our self, which is source. It's kind of the end of suffering, but infinite potential. Experience has always been, and it always will be. We are the experiencers. We kind of like chose to experience this bullshit. I don't think we'll be back here. I already know what this is like. That's all right, you know. But what will be experienced, who knows? So don't judge yourself. Deal with what comes. It's just a dream. Wake up in the dream, lucid dream. Take control of your mind, take control of the dream. The mind is the origin of the dream. Look at yourself when you go to bed and sleep and dream. As above, so below. What's happening down here in this dense, difficult experience is the same thing that's happening in the highest imaginable realm. Man, I'll tell you, I get into a groove. I could go on for hours because it's what I do. All right, I'm going to end right there then. Be aware of the thoughts that populate the mind. Use what you can, throw away what you don't. It's called wisdom. And your matrix, the matrix is the mind. So all this is going on. Your experience will be one of health, wealth, and prosperity. Or whatever you choose it to be. You are a point of perception. Without your perception, without you, nothing exists. Because everything that we believe is out there is actually in here. And it's being projected, so to speak, through the concept of perception. It's being projected outwardly. We think it's out there and we're perceiving it. That's ass backwards. Thought forms a dream. Wake up. Wake up to the waking state. What we call the waking state is a dream. Understand that. I know that sounds crazy. But honestly, if you have a better explanation as to what is going on, put it up on YouTube. I will be your first subscriber. This is all pretty simple, actually. And at the same time, it's phenomenal. Yeah. The things that are just going on in this dreamed up universe. When you wake up, the dream does not end. Source's dream does not end. Well, it may, but that's a subject for another video. Remember I talked about a manvantara and a pralaya. Later on, I'm going to be talking about those two terms. They're not original with me. I learned those terms from a woman, I believe, named Helen Blavatsky, that was the founder, so to speak, of a philosophical type of group called Theosophy. I got involved in that a long time ago. I never got involved in anything. Christianity, yes. But anything else, no. I never really get involved, but I study it all. I study it all. And yeah, one time I did have a guru. I ended up pissing her off real bad, but it's been a trip, man. Still is. But it's become fun. You wake up to the waking state. It's an experience. Is it possible that this waking state is actually a dream that you're having? Just ask yourself if that is possible. If you say, nope, take your medicine. If you're willing to say, well, that might be possible, don't make any decisions. Look around. I'm not the only person on YouTube talking about this. Look around until the big picture comes. And you can go, oh. All right, folks. If I don't make another video before it, if you're in America, have a happy Thanksgiving. I'm not a meat eater in my experience. In my experience, I'm a vegetarian. Do I have to be? No, not really. But it improves the dream. It does. It does. What we call raising your frequency. Frequencies and densities and dimensional levels and all that, they're all part of the big dream. All of manifestation is just one big dream of consciousness. And there's no judgment in that. We dream judgment. We dream morals and ethics and this and that, you know. And the Apostle Paul said, he said, all things are lawful for me. All things are lawful. But not all things are beneficial. Because in the dream of the universe, it's a cause and effect dream. It's a dream of duality. Learn how to play the game. Mind. I'm sorry. I thought this video would be like 40 minutes long, and look, it's an hour and 17 minutes. Sorry about that, but it is what it is. All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye.